All right, welcome to the Roger That Fantasy Football Show. Today we are going over our breakout wide receivers, those wide receivers this season that we think are going to take that jump to the next level. Cam, myself, and Jake all have two wide receivers we are going to be giving you to definitely target in your fantasy football drafts. Before we get into that, we do have a couple things to get through first. First off, now that we've kind of transitioned over and making these YouTube videos and providing you with some video content to watch, not necessarily just listen to the podcast or follow along on social media, we do ask, stick your neck out for us. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. It'll help us. It'll help, build the community we're trying to build. So definitely just hit that big red subscribe button.
Roger that. Roger that. The Fantasy Football Show.
We got the fantasy football trivia to start with. Now, we're going to be doing this more often on our Twitter page. Shout out to Dre that runs our social media at Roger That Pod on Twitter. And the question is, Dre Daddy. The question is, there's only one wide receiver to finish in the top 10 in fantasy football since 2015. Every single season since 2015. We got some responses. A lot of people, I would say 90% of the responses were like, it's Hopkins, DeAndre Hopkins. One person said Keenan Allen. Yikes. But the correct answer is Julio Jones. Now, the question becomes, in this 2020 season, do we see Julio Jones being a top 10 wide receiver again? Cam, what do you think?
I mean, and I know that both of you know this. I've had Julio on my team, I think, the last 3 years. So, yeah, he'll get you your 13, 14, 15 points. But then out of nowhere, he's going to get you a 25 or a 30 spot. So, I mean, for me, I think 100% he's top 10. And I think I'm a little higher on Julio this year than most. I actually have him as my wide receiver 2. And I think he'd even be wide receiver 1 this year. So I definitely agree with that.
Interesting. Fantasy Pros has the Falcons' strength of schedule against cornerbacks as the 8th easiest in the league this year. So I think Julio Jones had some favorable matchups in the NFC South that he's going to exploit for another year. I have him as 3 right now. I think he's a top 5 lock. And like Cam says, wide receiver 1 upside always with Julio Jones.
On the wide receiver topic, let's move into what the people came here for. We are, like I said, going over our wide receiver breakout players this year. Jake, who is your first breakout wide receiver?
Yeah, and so I think Evan was explaining earlier too with the concept of breakout. Just as we're in the wide receiver topic here, Chris Godwin was probably the biggest breakout guy last year. I'm just saying I picked him also, but 66% of ESPN leagues that had Chris Godwin, teams that had Chris Godwin made the playoffs in their league last year. So the importance of a breakout wide receiver is imperative. You can get one of these guys that we're mentioning that blow out their ADP. I mean, you can almost guarantee that you're going to have a playoff share. So the first guy I want to highlight.
Hold on, Jake. Jake, are we not going to acknowledge the fact that these last 2 videos we've done within the first couple minutes,
myself on my back.
You've taken the chance to pump your own tires each and every time.
All right, well, when we do the running backs next, I'm going to say I suck at running backs. So.
Well, you do. So.
I do.
He'll find a way. But all right, let's hit it.
So the Packers offseason got a lot of flack for not upgrading Aaron Rodgers' targets and his offense around him. But the biggest winner, in my opinion, from that is Allen Lazard, who a lot of the local beat writers in Green Bay have as a clear-cut number 2 option for Aaron Rodgers next year. And we've seen in recent years the value of having the Packers number 2. In fact, since 2008, the average number 2 receiver for the Packers finished as top 28 in terms of wide receiver for PPR rankings. I mean, they've had some stacked receiver groups with Devontae Adams, Jordy Nelson, James Jones, Randall Cobb, all featuring that 2 role at some point in their career. So Allen Lazard has some big shoes to fill. But I do think he's in a prime position to see an increased amount of targets. And at the end of the year, it looked like Aaron Rodgers and him started to develop some chemistry that I think can carry over into Lazard's 3rd year in the league. So just in terms of projections, I'm not going to compare Lazard to Devontae Adams here, but Devontae Adams, I'm going to read some numbers off for you. In 2016, as the number 2 to Jordy Nelson, finished with 121 targets, 75 catches, 997 yards, and 12 TDs, which is good enough for 7th in the league that year in terms of fantasy value. Now, again, Lazard is not Devontae Adams, but if he can come close to those numbers, personally, I predict him at around 65 catches, 900 yards, and 8 TDs, which would have him around 200 fantasy points, which last year would have been around wide receiver 25. He's got an ADP of 170 something right now. So you can get a guy at 170 that can slide into the 25th receiver next year. I think that's a huge value that you can have for your league in terms of a breakout player.
100%. Cam, what do you got?
N'Keal Harry, Mecole Hardman,
my boy,
Ortega Whiteside, Paris Campbell, and Andy Isabella. All receivers drafted before DK Metcalf. Metcalf is second among rookies in catches, third in yards, and third in touchdown catches. For me, I'm very high on Metcalf this year, especially in that second year with Russ. He was primarily at the X receiver, and the Seahawks OC actually came out and said that Metcalf was initially kind of stuck into that X receiver, but now they're going to kind of expand his role, and they know that they can move him around a lot more. I actually have him as my wide receiver 13, and I know our rankings will come out a little later. And I think towards the end of the year, he actually set the rookie playoff record against the Eagles in yards. He was doing it all, and once you kind of can expand his role, he saw 6 or more targets in 11 of 18 games, including the playoffs. So obviously, when you're looking at receiver, you're looking at volume, and he continuously was getting that volume. I think sky's the limit for Metcalf. I have him at about 80 catches for 1,100 yards and 11 touchdowns.
Whew. All right. And I will say, Jake, Cam, we are going to be logging our predictions here just to see how accurate we are. We're holding ourselves accountable here, but
I feel good about
we go a side bet off that too.
I feel good about that.
All right. Sounds good. So,
Cam, when has Russell had 2 receivers that were studs though? Has he ever supported 2 guys like that?
I'm telling you right now. Tyler Lockett obviously he was a fantasy stud, but I think Metcalf this year overtakes him as the Seahawks' number 1 receiver.
They're also so different. Like if it was a Lockett 2.0, then all of a sudden I agree with you, Jake. Like, what are you gonna do? You're just gonna have another Tyler Lockett. But if you have 2 receivers that are completely separate, they bring completely separate molds to the game. I think there's room for Metcalf to excel. So I am with you, Cam. But let's move on to my guy. All right, so my guy is Deontay Johnson. Now, Jake, let me ask you this. What have the Steelers excelled in the past?
Wide receivers, baby. Woo!
Yes. So I do see Deontay Johnson becoming that next wide receiver 2. We saw it with Antonio Brown. We saw it with Juju Smith-Schuster. And we're going to see it with Deontay Johnson. Above all else, I am trusting that Steelers front office, that Steelers scouting staff just to pick the next wide receiver. Last season, he had 59 receptions, 680 yards for 5 touchdowns. Nothing too crazy. But let me ask you this. What do you guys think Deontay Johnson, in a time towards the end of the season with Duck Hodges and Mason Rudolph, where do you think between weeks 14 and 17, Deontay Johnson finished as a wide receiver? Any clue?
I don't know. He had some big weeks, right?
He was the number 12 wide receiver closing out the season last year with the worst quarterbacks throwing him the ball. This guy can do it. They get a healthy quarterback. They get a Big Ben quarterback. This guy can do it. And right now he's going right around 130 in terms of ADP. If he's around, I would say 120 to 130, if you pass on this guy, you could have just missed the next wide receiver of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Now, Evan, I have a quick question for you. My thought process is, and I'm very high on this rookie, is Chase Claypool out of Notre Dame. Do you think that's going to take away any volume from Deontay Johnson, or is it more of a wait and see kind of thing?
I would say it's obviously, we don't know what we're getting. So I guess you could say wait and see. But the one thing I will say is based on week 14 on last year, Deontay Johnson just proved himself. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to take the proven guy. I'm going to take the guy that I think, excelled in a system where their quarterback was pretty much kicking the ball to them. Mm-hmm. I'm going to take the guy that has proven himself under those circumstances. And hopefully Big Ben can actually throw the ball and get to him. So that is my my first breakout wide receiver, and I'm sticking to it.
But that also brings up another question is, I know Juju got drafted high last year, and obviously he didn't have the greatest year. And I think a big question mark is, when does Juju go this year? And I think that's something that we'll just kind of have to wait and see.
I'm hoping for a bounce back here for Juju. I think the sky's the limit for that guy. I just, like Evan said, had such bad quarterback play that someone's going to suffer from that. You're going to get a better Juju Smith this year, 100%. Like that's, I think he bounces back in a big way.
So here we go. Here are my predictions for Deontay. I have him at 70, and like I said, 59, 680, and 5 for him last year. Where I see him going this year is around 75, just under 1,000, maybe call it 950. And this is probably the big jump. And this is sort of my huge flyer. Like, let's see if it happens. I put him at the double-digit mark for touchdowns. 10 touchdowns for Deontay Johnson. I will admit, like, that isn't my floor for him. That's more of a flyer. That is more of a, let's knock this one out of the park.
We like to be bold.
Yes, we do. Deontay Johnson's my guy. I'm sticking to it. He's going to be a stud this year. Draft him. So
kind of sucks. I was planning on drafting him in our league, but I know Evan's going to count me down.
First round for me.
All right, Jake, who do you got for your second breakout?
Yeah, so speaking of bad quarterback play, no one suffered from worst quarterback play in the league last year more than this guy. And I know because I had to watch him on a week in, week out basis. My guy, Curtis Samuel, had Kyle Allen overthrowing him, underthrowing him all season long. In fact, he had the most uncatchable targets come his way with 40.
Wow.
Which is a wild stat. Even if you don't believe too much in Teddy Bridgewater, you have to say Teddy Bridgewater is a massive upgrade over Kyle Allen. And a stat that I thought was pretty interesting, in his limited time last year, Teddy Bridgewater was actually 4th in completion percentage on deep balls, which is where Curtis Samuel kind of makes his money. The amount of times that Curtis Samuel was open past the safety downfield and Kyle Allen just missed him, even if he catches 1 or 2 of those, that fantasy value is up. Last year, he finished wide receiver 36 in PPR with 54 catches, 627 yards, 6 touchdowns. I'm banking on him, Teddy Bridgewater, Matt Rule, and Joe Brady figuring it out together and really providing a high upside guy that you can grab late. He's slotted at 54 right now for wide receivers. I still think he might have less targets maybe with DJ Moore rising and Robbie Anderson there, but they're going to find a way to get him the ball in space. He's going to run the ball more. He's going to get some more screens, some end arounds. I still think he hovers around 170 points. I'm not going to project his catches and everything because I think it gets muddled, but I still think he finds a way to get 170, 180 points, which would still kind of slot him in that 36, 35 wide receiver range. If you're getting a guy at 54 that can still break out to wide receiver 30, that's a big value in my opinion. And I think he's a steal all day long in that range. Curtis Samuel's my guy. I'm going to draft him again for the 4th straight year.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I don't think, like you said, Bridgewater is definitely a massive upgrade. So, I mean, I guess we'll have to wait and see. Now, mine is, you said you're talking about Robbie Anderson on his new team. But what about the team Robbie Anderson just left? What team's that?
JETS.
JETS, Jets. In the final 5 games of the 2019 season, this wide receiver caught 25 passes for 506 yards and 5 touchdowns. Who is that?
Why don't you tell us, Cam?
Rashad.
The intrigue is killing me.
Who is it?
Perryman. As the Bucs' 3rd option, and when I say 3rd option, I mean Evans and Godwin got probably, and don't quote me on this, but probably 90% of the targets. Let's be real.
Yeah.
He had 69 targets. He had 36 catches. So obviously you want to see more of a stat line with his catches there. But I mean, as a 3rd option, he was averaging just under 18 yards per catch. And I know we all saw the last final games. If you're watching Red Zone or if you're watching SportsCenter, Perriman went off. Yeah, he's a former 1st-round pick. And I mean, I also think I'm pretty high on Sam Darnold this year. And I know I said this last year too, but I think he could totally break out this year. And I mean, Perriman could be slotted in as the number 1 receiver right away. I know they have Crowder in the slot, but I mean, I'm telling you, Rashad Perriman, I was looking at Fantasy Pros, their rankings and all the rankings just to kind of see where I might try to grab him. He's the 62nd wide receiver right now. So like Jake said, if you draft him as a 62nd receiver, and even if he gets to wide receiver 35, wide receiver 30, there's still value there, especially, and I know in our league, we have two flex spots. So, I mean, even if you slot him in as your second flex spot, I think that him and Darnold are going to have a big year. And I think that and I know this may be a little bold, I think he's going to have 75 catches, 900 yards, and 7 touchdowns. I think he is finally going to live up to his when he got drafted in the first round. So I'm pretty high on Perriman this year, and he will be on my team, and that is a fact. It's only a matter of time before everyone's looking back at this video and saying, wow, Roger that kid is going to be a top 30 receiver.
All right, fair enough. We will see. That is definitely going to be one that we check back on, especially with some of the projections there. But my last guy here, and this is probably, like you said, he's going, in terms of Perriman, is going to be on your team. Michael Gallup, I'm going to do everything possible to get him on my team.
CeeDee Lamb.
Michael Gallup. CeeDee Lamb, give me a break. Just like Deontay Johnson, I am going to take the guy that has proven it over any sort of a rookie. I'm going to take the proven wide receiver, the guy that Dak Prescott trusts. In fact, let me tell you this. I'm taking the wide receiver 2 here on the Cowboys, right? This is a wide receiver 2 that only received 6 less targets than the wide receiver 1 in Amari Cooper. Who's to say that Amari Cooper is the wide receiver 1 there? But what I'm trying to say is that this is a guy that is sort of, in the last 2 seasons playing this league, taking a step up each and every single year. And guess what? Last year, you would have told me, no, he's not going to step it up because they're going to give the ball to Zeke 1,000,000 times a game. Well, guess what? Michael Gallup all of a sudden gets in there 66 receptions, over 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns. He's being drafted in the 70th range right now. I don't care about CeeDee Lamb. In fact, I don't care about Amari Cooper. Michael Gallup could very well be Dak Prescott's sort of blanket. He throws to him, gives him the ball, red zone target, everything like that. His teammates have even come out and said this offseason that he's a number 1 guy. And I just told you the stat about the receptions. Only 6 less receptions than the number 1, one of the better route runners in the league, Amari Cooper. I don't understand why people are sleeping on Michael Gallup, and I don't understand why you can even knock his breakout potential. You're adding a rookie to the team and assuming that's going to deteriorate from the wide receiver 1 and the wide receiver 2. I don't see that at all. I see that as giving Dak Prescott another target and or opening it up for Michael Gallup.
The Dallas Cowboys got the steal of the draft when CeeDee Lamb fell into their laps. He's the best rookie wide receiver in the draft. And do you think, Evan, and just from a fantasy aspect, do you think having three of, I guess, that high of caliber wide receivers, is there enough volume to share, or how's that going to work?
That's fair, but I'm going off
every team, so there's not going to be. It's not like they're the Bucks from last year when they're throwing 45, 50 times a game. If they're a run first team, where are the targets going?
Let me tell you this. You're talking about targets. Let me talk about receptions for a minute. On catchable balls, Michael Gallup caught over 85% of catchable balls last year. So sure, you know what? I'll give you this. Maybe targets aren't going there, but that's more of a quantity over quality sort of stat. I love Michael Gallup in the idea that when he gets his opportunity, he's going to produce. And I'm just a firm believer in that opportunity is going to be there. So instead of thinking sort of, oh, there's wide receivers out there. One, again, I'm going to mention it's a rookie that we don't know about, but there's so many wide receivers. What are you going to do? I'm going to take the guy that when he gets the ball thrown to him, he's going to produce. And guess what? When he gets the ball thrown to him and he produces, the ball's going to keep coming more and more and more and more. Catchable balls, over 80% catches. What are you going to do? The quarterback's going to start trusting him. He's going to throw it to him. CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup.
CeeDee's nuts, huh?
I mean, don't get me wrong. If Michael Gallup's there at the right time, I'm 100% taking him. All I'm saying is I think that them picking up CeeDee Lamb, I just think that the target shares are going to be more even than we think.
Yeah, we can discuss CeeDee on a later episode too about rookies, but I'm with Cam. I think that guy was the steal of the NFL draft. He is a superstar, and
we the boys.
Hey, let me tell you this. Everyone for the entire season said, Adam Thielen, no, that guy stinks. That guy stinks. I told you Adam Thielen was going to be a stud. Sure. Adam Thielen was going to be a stud, and he was the wide receiver 2 a couple years ago.
True.
So, hey.
That one.
Here we go. Michael Gallup galloping his way into a top 15 wide receiver this year.
Woo!
Book it.
Woo!
Don't sleep on my boy Blake Jarwin down there too against him.
Oh my God, you're gonna give me all these weapons.
Jake, you couldn't just let Evan have this. You had to chime in.
Jake always needs the last word. But
have to.
All right, to recap. Jake, you had Lazard, Cam. You went with DK Metcalf. I gave Deontay Johnson. Jake, your second one. Curtis Samuel. Cam, who'd you go with? Rashad Perriman. My final one was the guy that's winning the Kentucky Derby this year, the Galloper, Michael Gallup. Those are 6 wide receivers. Though we may disagree with each other, if you want to get on my back and I'll take you to, by the way, in our league, I won the most recent championship. If you want to get on this back, let me take you to Promised Land. Go right ahead. You want to believe these jokesters? That's your decision.
Turn the page.
All right. Well, again, I'm going to ask you guys to subscribe to the YouTube page. It does help us out a lot. We're trying to build just a bigger community here. We've been doing the social media game for a couple of years. We just ventured onto the video side of things, and so far, so good. We're getting great feedback, great results. So make sure you let us know what you think of these picks in the comments down below. Hit that subscribe button and tweet us at RogerThatPod on Twitter. Jake has something to say.
Follow us on TikTok too. We just started TikTok today. We're trendy now. We're cool.
Business is booming on TikTok.
Booming on TikTok.
Roger That Fantasy on TikTok and on Instagram. We will see you guys in the next video.